Okay, before I start, I would like to confirm whether I am audible or not.
You are audible, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So, a very good morning to one and all present here. Thank you very much for joining us in time. And as all of you are aware, we are about to begin with the fifth day of this short-term training program organized by Ballarpur Institute of Technology, Ballarpur, and sponsored by All India Council for Technical Education. The title of this short-term training program is Biotechnology and its application in tribal agriculture areas, as we are aware. And you must have referred the schedule, and in the schedule, you must have seen that our honorable resource person for today's session is Mr. Pranay Raut, sir, who is from Priyadarshini Institute of Engineering and Technology, Nagpur. And he will be conducting a session on advances in biochemical engineering, biosurfactant, as he has already presented on the screen. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all along with our honorable resource person. Welcome Pranay Raut sir, and welcome all the attending members for fifth day to attend the fifth day of this short-term training program. And I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our honorable resource person, Mr. Pranay Raut sir. He is from Priyadarshini Institute of Engineering and Technology, Nagpur. He is pursuing PhD from NIT Raipur, that is National Institute of Technology, Raipur. He has completed MTech in Chemical Engineering from IIT Kharagpur, which happens to be a very renowned institute of India. His major work areas include wastewater treatment using nanocomposite and adsorption, nanobiocomposite material for shelf life enhancement of agriculture products like fruits and vegetables. Till date, he has published several papers in national and international journals and also written chapters in Springer. His earlier sessions in batch 1 and 2 of this short-term training program were a huge success due to the in-depth information shared by him. And he has also received the Best Speaker Award short-term training program batch 2, considering the knowledge shared by him and the appreciation of the same by the participants. I must say, Pranay Raut sir, we are really glad to welcome you once again in batch 3 of this short-term training program. You will be conducting second session for us in this third batch. And may I now please request you, sir, to please start the session.
Okay, thank you, Abhijit sir, for giving me this opportunity to share this particular topic, second topic in this particular STTP or second session in this STTP. Since this topic is concerned, first of all, very good morning to all participants, attendees, and the purpose of the topic to have this kind of session in this kind of STTP is that since we are concerned more concerned about this pandemic situation or about COVID-19 coronavirus, and everyone is even our health authorities and government is also ensuring us and forcing us or suggesting us to have complete hygiene so as to keep away this particular virus. So I just search for various topic which I could include, but this topic that biosurfactant found appealing particular knowledge or appealing relativeness to this particular pandemic situation. Since this particular topic, that advances in biochemical engineering, this biosurfactant is concerned, the surfactant molecule we are already using since at 50 around 50 years, but there are some drawbacks and some disadvantages associated with this particular surfactant molecule, which are being used in food industry and pharmaceutical industry and detergent industry. So there is a constant need and constant concern among the researchers to ensure that this particular surfactant so as to not have a health hazard as well as the environmental hazards. So since surfactant molecules are derived from the crude petroleum sources, so disposal of this particular crude petroleum sources or the waste obtained from that is a huge problem, and that creates not only disposal methods are available, but these disposal methods creates a lot of sludge, which again pose different threats to the environment about their decomposition. So biosurfactant is very I think good replacement about for this particular surfactant molecule, which have been not only used in health industry as well as the detergent industry, but also now they are finding a very great scope in food industry also. And a lot of research needs to be done to have this particular biosurfactant molecule to be used as an additive in this particular uh, this particular food industry. So let's start with this session, in which I will just summarize about the different aspects of surfactant molecules and how it is being synthesized, what are biosurfactant, then how they are being synthesized from different microorganisms, what are their roots, and I will shortly summarize their potential applications in detergent industry as well as not only this industry but also pharmaceutical industry and food industry. And then finally I will conclude this session with some challenges that this particular biosurfactant have in the production or in the formulation purpose. And so these challenges will create a lot of opportunity for the future scope and future potential for the use of this particular biosurfactant molecule in various applications. uh, say let's let me give this content in which I am going to share with you. I will introduce surfactant molecule, what is surfactant molecule and how it is being classified basically, and then what are the basic challenges and drawbacks of using these surfactant molecules. Then I will introduce this biosurfactant molecule. What are they? Then how do they classified based on different origins and shapes and size. Then we will discuss about production techniques. What are the different production techniques? Normally, fermentation techniques are been common for the production of this biosurfactant molecule, and then their applications in various industries, in various areas. Especially, we will focus on the role of this particular biosurfactant in against the COVID-19 coronavirus, to eradicate or to eliminate this coronavirus virus from various applications. Then also, not only these biosurfactant molecules have some advantages but also some challenges it has, especially in terms of the production method which it has. And then these challenges will again create a future perspective and future potential, which we will discuss at the end of the session. So let me start this introduction. This surfactant I will also show you how this biosurfactant act to eliminate this particular coronavirus with some video. So let me start this introduction that surfactant molecules is normally amphipathic in nature, means it contains both polar and non-polar portion. As you all know that the polar portion, which is a hydrophilic part, and non-polar portion is a hydrophobic part. Not it is also called as a lipophilic part. So it contains this particular peculiarity of this surfactant molecule, that having both polar and non-polar portion, it actually makes it very unique. As you can see from the figure that this particular surfactant molecule is having hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail. This hydrophobic tail is a long hydrocarbon chain, very long hydrocarbon chain, and whereas hydrophilic head is actually a polar portion. So the hydrophilic part is a polar moiety with strong affinity towards a polar substance such as water, whereas hydrophobic part of the long hydrocarbon chain of the surfactant molecule, since the surfactant molecules are being derived from the crude petroleum sources, so there is a long hydrocarbon chain that it possesses. It shows its affinity towards non-polar media such as oil and fats. So they can continuously interact with both polar and non-polar substance. That is what the peculiarity of the surfactant molecule, and that is what being used in various applications. This dual characteristic allows the surfactant molecule to reduce the surface tension and confers a desirable properties such as as detergency, emulsifying activity, foaming, mixing, and dispersion. So this dual property of this particular surfactant, it actually help to reduce the surface tension between polar and non-polar compounds, and it helps to form a particular emulsion between water and oil, or air and oil. So that dual characteristic helps to reduce the surface tension and to allow to mix. It actually helps to mix this particular oil with water. So if we can classify this particular surfactant molecules by origin, as far as this session is being concerned, so we will let's classify this particular surfactant. So the surfactant can be basically classified based on its origin. So that can be synthetic, that can be semi-synthetic, or biological. Especially biological origin of the surfactant is also called as a biosurfactant molecule, whereas the synthetic surfactant molecules have been purely derived from the crude potential crude petroleum sources. And so as far as the composition is concerned, or semi-synthetic is concerned, so semi-synthetic part is surfactant molecules. They come from some natural sources. Part of this come from the natural sources, that is vegetable oil or fats. So the chemical surfactant, they mostly comprise of ethylene oxide and propylene oxide, copolymers, and alkoxylated derivatives of alkyl phenol, sorbitan esters, alcohol, and amines. So these are the sources from which the chemical surfactant have been mostly derived, that is ethylene oxide, copolymers, and alkoxylated derivatives of alkyl phenol, or sorbitan esters, alcohol, and amines. But semi-synthetic surfactant, they have some natural sources, that is the oleochemicals coming from the vegetable oil and fats, that are subsequently modified through the various chemical processes. Whereas a lipophilic component is provided by natural oil, while the ulterior synthesis that confirms the hydrophilic moiety. So thus oleochemical surfactant is also called as a semi-synthetic surfactant. Our focus will be mainly on the biosurfactant molecules. So it has these particular surfactant molecules, they have some drawbacks and challenges, like surfactant, they have very negative impact on the environment due to their crude oil origin, as I told you in the previous slide. So crude oil shows a high profile of ecotoxicity and low profile of biodegradability, since all of you know that it is consists of a complicated hydrocarbon chain, and that poses very very complicated processes of degradation. So biodegradation of the crude petroleum is not so possible, but there are some chemical processes that may help that particular crude petroleum to degrade, but that also gives another environmental hazard in terms of sludge that they produce. So the sludge that they produce, that the complex hydrocarbon molecules have been simply converted to simpler hydrocarbon molecules, or simple carbon molecules. But that sludge of the particular hydrocarbons again has a very huge threat in terms of its disposal. So that not only increases the cost, but also increases the complexity of the process. So even if they are slightly degradable, but that releases the toxic chemicals when they decompose. So before I go to the biosurfactant, let me view this particular video, which will help you to understand what is this biosurfactant is actually.
So polar and nonpolar don't naturally mix, but we can persuade them. In the case of asphalt paving, it takes a tremendous amount of heat energy to persuade the asphalt, a nonpolar oil, to coat the rocks made up primarily of polar molecules like quartz. However, at Ingevity Pavement Technologies, we've discovered a way to replace much of that heat energy with chemical peacemakers. Molecules that can bring together substances that would otherwise be, well, polar opposites. They're called surface active agents, or surfactants, molecules derived from fats that have both polar and nonpolar qualities. The classic surfactant molecule. It has a polar head and a long carbon chain for a tail. For the sake of demonstration, we'll use a bit of shorthand and transform our surfactant molecule into what we call a lollipop. If we could see what was happening at a molecular level, magnifying the molecules over 1 trillion times, and we added our lollipops, our surfactant molecules, to a beaker full of H2O, the surfactant molecules immediately go to the interface, and the polar heads, doing what nature likes, are drawn to the polar water molecules. But when the surface is saturated, when no more surfactant molecules will fit, something really interesting happens.
So this is what the formation of micelle they are describing. So when this particular water molecule is being very much saturated with this particular surfactant molecule, so no space available for the surfactant molecule to get accommodated in the water. So what they're going to create is they are going to form a micelle, and that is a orderly structure, circular structure, which will help them to trap a dirt or oil within itself.
Sort of dance. The excess molecules find each other. The nonpolar tails all want to be together, and the polar heads all want to be together. And they form spheres called micelles. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, that's all well and good, but how does it help me? For that explanation, we'll turn to the most well-known surfactant on the planet, soap. That's right, soap is a molecule derived from fats that has, ta-da, a polar head and a nonpolar tail. So, if instead of a beaker of water, we have a glass that contains not only water, but also remnants of cooking oil, and we add our soap or surfactant molecules, they do the same thing that they did before. But this time, the nonpolar tails of our soap molecules and the nonpolar oil molecules are drawn together. The oil is captured within the micelles and can now be easily rinsed away. But where do these miracle
So I hope this video will definitely help you to understand what is this particular surfactant molecule is about. So as I told you in the previous slide, that is surfactant is basically consists of both polar and non-polar molecule. So when we add this particular surfactant molecule in terms of, as they called it in a they have explained its application in terms of soap industry. So when we have added this particular surfactant molecule in terms of detergent or soap in water, so first of all the molecules or surfactant molecules, they accommodate themselves by having a polar head towards water, and the rest of the molecules, they form micelle, in which they trap a particular non-polar dirt molecule or oil molecule or fat, which is non-polar in nature, so that this particular micelle can easily rinsed off from the water. So that help actually to remove the dirt from the water, or to remove the dirt from the fat molecule or oil molecules from the cloths. So that is what the functionality of the surfactant molecule. But since the surfactant molecules are consist of very kind of very synthetic in nature, and they have a very high toxicity, so that's why there is a need to have a particular green process to have a green surfactant molecule, called it as a biosurfactant. So this biosurfactant is normally a secondary metabolite generated from the various microorganisms, including bacteria, fungi, and yeast. And based on their origin also, we can classify them as a bacterial surfactant or lipopeptide surfactant, or some based on yeast surfactant. So there are a lot of research has been taken place, especially to extract this particular surfactant, biosurfactant, I can say, which is being produced by the bacteria, fungi, and yeast during their growth cycle. So you may have some doubts in your mind that how this biosurfactant molecule has been produced by this bacteria or fungi. So as you all know that all these microorganisms, they have some kind of growth cycle in their lifespan. So when they undergo growth cycle, so during the exponential phase, they consume most of the carbon sources for their metabolism, for their own metabolism. But at the end of the this growth cycle, when they comes to the towards the end of the growth cycle, they have a kind of scarcity of carbon sources. So to achieve this, to have more carbon for their metabolism, what they do is they produce a secondary metabolites called as the biosurfactant, which help them to break down the lipid membrane around themselves and to have the particular non-polar, or call it as a hydrocarbon chain within itself, so that carbon material can be, or carbon source can be easily utilized by them to have their own metabolism. So that is how this particular biosurfactant molecules have been generated by this bacteria and fungi and yeast. And since these surfactant molecules which is being generated, they have both polar and non-polar entity. So this particular biosurfactant, they have also shown to be antimicrobial or antiviral properties. But the study that has been done by various researchers, they have seen that bacterial, the biosurfactant molecule which is being generated by some bacteria, so they show some antiviral property also, as well as some antibacterial property, but against not the bacteria that in which they are producing, but against some other bacteria also. So that helps that particular biosurfactant molecules to be used in various health industry, as well as some food industry also. So the bacterial biosurfactant or bacterial surfactant called the rhamnolipids, they are being generated from the Pseudomonas aeruginosa, whereas the lipopeptide biosurfactant, it is being called it as surfactant, which is being generated from the Bacillus subtilis. So these are the very commonly generated, or commonly formulated, or commonly utilized biosurfactant molecules, that is rhamnolipids and surfactant, which is being generated from the bacterial source. Emulsion also another kind of biosurfactant molecule which is being used or generated by the Acinetobacter calcoacericus molecule microbe, and sophorolipids from Candida bombicola. So they are attached either intracellularly or extracellularly during their growth, as I told you. And hydrophilic head usually consists of a peptide, amino acid, and monosaccharide, disaccharide, or polysaccharide. Whereas the hydrophobic tail that usually consists of a linear branched, saturated or unsaturated or hydroxylated fatty acid. So as you can see that now this hydrophilic head usually consists of amino acid or monosaccharide or polysaccharide, whereas the hydrophobic tail usually consists of a long saturated or linear fatty acid. So these biosurfactant, they are normally used or produced from the renewable sources. So a lot of research has been also carried out or is undergone to have this particular bacterial growth cycle from some waste material, which can give a good potential source for the carbon to them. So they generally have a low toxicity. They are highly biodegradable since they are being generated from the microorganism, and they are being generated by using the carbon source, which is very much naturally available carbon source, especially from the waste material, lignocellulosic waste material, or some other waste material obtained in the nature. So they often display a better environmental compatibility in terms of their degradability, as well as in terms of their toxicity also, having very low toxicity, since low means very least toxicity. They usually remain stable at wide range of pH and temperature. So this is a very important property of this biosurfactant molecule. So they can remain stable in a wide range of pH, spreading from the 2 to 12 pH, and the temperature from 30 to 100 degrees Celsius. There are some microorganisms. Not all the biosurfactant molecules show this kind of wide range of stability in terms of pH and temperature, but there are some strains which are available, which can have that potential to produce a biosurfactant molecule having a good range of stability in this particular pH and temperature. So low molecular weight biosurfactant, they are more effective in reducing the surface tension at their air-water interface and interfacial tension at oil-water interface. So higher molecular weight also. So higher biomolecular weight biosurfactant, normally called it as a bioemulsifier, and they are mostly most effectively utilized in stabilizing the oil in water emulsion. So these bioemulsifier are normally having a good potential to be used in a food industry, whereas low molecular weight biosurfactant, which is being very much effective in reducing the surface tension at air, water, and oil water interface. So they have good potential to be used in the health industry, as well as some especially personal healthcare industry and detergent industry. So I will explain you some applications, potential applications of them in this particular industries. So based on the classification, these biosurfactant, both molecular components are assembled via linking biochemical functionalities such as ether, amides, and esters. So this biosurfactant, it tends to be categorized by their microbial origin, as we have done in the previous slide, or molecular weight, or mode of action. So according to the kind of each moiety, these biosurfactants are frequently classified as glycolipids, lipopolysaccharides, lipopeptides, phospholipids, and fatty acids. So each group has a specific physicochemical features and physiological roles to play, and most of them are very much widely utilized. So glycolipids, it's a condensation of the fatty acid and carbohydrates, as you can see in the figure, that this particular lipid and carbohydrate, they undergo condensation to form a glycolipid. So their names are taken from the carbohydrate, especially glycolipids. They contain the sophorose, and also called as the sophorolipids. So those containing rhamnose are called as the rhamnolipids, or those with trehalose, they are also called as a trehalose lipids, and so on. So, this is a lipid membrane which is being shown, and the sugar or lipid residue, sugar residue is being attached to the lipid residue. They undergo condensation to form the glycolipid. Whereas these glycolipid are most common type of biosurfactant, and they are easiest available. So these are the lipids which are covalently bonded with a carbohydrate and consist of a monosaccharide, disaccharide, or polysaccharide. Among them, the most common glycolipids which are being utilized are rhamnolipids and sophorolipids, as I told you in the previous slide also, and trihalolipids. The first two, that is rhamnolipids and sophorolipids, they are being mostly used in various formulations. These rhamnolipids are the type of glycolipids and are frequently described as the best of the bacterial surfactant, mainly due to their excellent physicochemical properties. So their excellent surface and biological activities make them suitable to for the direct application to have in a lot of industries. Among the other molecules or other organisms that generally produces these rhamnolipids are the Pseudomonas, and they consist of a glycosyl head group and fatty acid tail. So, for example, if the rhamnose moiety and 3-hydroxydecanoic acid, they produce rhamnolipids. So they are being generated normally by the Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which is being studied by most of the researchers. Another type of rhamnolipids which is being produced by methyl pentose monosaccharide strain known as the Pseudomonas fluorescens. So Pseudomonas strain is specifically known to generate lipid glycolipid biosurfactant molecules, especially rhamnolipids. And whereas the surfactant, which is a bacterial generally form or produced by the bacterial strain called as the Bacillus subtilis, it is a cyclic lipopeptide consisting of 7 amino acids, where its hydrophobic tail is composed of 13 to 15 long carbon chain. Whereas amphiphilic nature allows the surfactant molecules to survive and act on both hydrophobic and hydrophilic environment. Now, the surfactant is normally widely used biosurfactant molecules in also shows antimicrobial, antibacterial, and antiviral properties. That's why it is the most commonly used or most widely explored biosurfactant molecule in various industries. So the ability to lower the surface tension significantly is also important, which make this surfactant molecule to be appropriate for the various formulations in various healthcare products. Personal care products, especially in I will say personal care industry and detergent, and or even for oil recovery. So these surfactant molecules biosurfactant molecules, they also find their major applications in various bioremediation processes, where the bioremediation of various oil spills in seawater as well as on soil they pose various health hazards in terms of sludge formation if used by if it is being used uh, by various conventional chemical remediation processes. So a lot of recent studies have on the surfactant and its application have been conducted, highlighting its diverse industrial use. The synthesis of the surfactant through genetic engineering has been also studied in order to improve the low yield that is being usually obtained from the wild strain of Bacillus. With engineering approach being developed for the various surfactant production, so 53 genes have been modified in Bacillus subtilis, which gives yield of the surfactant to about 42% compared to the theoretical yield, and which is one of the highest yield obtained till now. So it opens up the production of the surfactant molecule and its commercial use as a biosurfactant for various industrial in even more near future. So what are the properties of the biosurfactant molecule help them to be used in various industries or various applications? So one of the most common or most beneficial property of the biosurfactant molecule is its surface activity. It is one of the most surface active molecule that help it to be used in various kind of industries. So these biosurfactant, they are surface active biomolecules that are implemented in many various industries because of their versatile properties, versatile nature. Just as a chemically synthetic surfactant, they have ability to self-assemble and form micelle, has been shown in the previous video. That micelle actually helps to have the non-polar moieties together, and that particular non-polar moieties attract non-polar molecules like dirt and fat and oils, which is being dissolved, which is being present in water molecule or cloths which has been soaked in water. So this allows them to have a morphologically different structures from each other and increases their specificity, spherical, rod-like, and worm-like micelle. So the micelles can be a spherical, can be a rod-like, can be a worm-like, so that this different shapes of the micelles help to have a different molecules of fats and globules or oiled or dirt molecules to be trapped inside them so as to remove them from the water. So their ability to lower the surface tension and interfacial tension makes them more suitable for the commercial application. And compared to the chemical surfactant, they are more effective because they decrease the surface tension even more and more efficient, since their critical micelle concentration value is very much severely times lower. So this means that the maximum decrease of the surface tension, there is a less amount of biosurfactant needed, and that's why these surfactant molecules or biosurfactant molecules, they are mostly they are very much commonly utilized in various soap industries and detergent industries because of their efficiency to decrease surface tension maximally. So the temperature and pH tolerance is also another important factor uh, uh, for the biosurfactant to be utilized in various industries, whereas the biodegradability also is one of the most important environmental factor of this biosurfactant to be used to be used in various formulations instead of chemical surfactant. So the temperature, pH tolerance, their stability towards a wide range of pH and temperature, whereas their biodegradability and their ability to reduce the surface tension and interfacial tension makes them more suitable candidate as compared to the conventional surfactant molecules to be used in various industries. So the surface activity, the surface tension or interfacial tension or surface rheology, these are the aspects of various the surface activity that play an important role in the formulation in various applications. So most of the personal care formulations, they consist of emulsion which are being stabilized by different surfactant, and understanding the surface activity of the surfactant is very much vital in predicting and ensuring the stability and efficacy of the final product. So the cleansing and foaming are also another properties of the biosurfactant which are directly associated with the surface activity. So foaming is another kind of property, surface activity property of this particular biosurfactant, which actually normally utilize or more important in the formulation in various detergents and soap. Whereas the rheology, a lot of means very less amount of work has been done in terms of rheology of the biosurfactant molecules. So bulk rheology is commonly first set of properties that get characterized while formulating the product. And insight gained from such studies can be highly remarkable in terms of flow properties and viscosity profile. So the product being formulated needs to be exhibit a shear thinning behavior that can be easily explored through various through its viscosity profile. However, there has not been a lot of studies done on the rheology in terms of biosurfactant mixture. So more study needs to be done to have or to study the rheological properties of the biosurfactant molecule in terms of its viscosity profile. That is what the shear thinning behavior, which is very much important to reduce their surface tension and interfacial tension when it comes in contact with the water. Whereas as I told you that they have very good stability towards wide range of temperature, pH, and the ionic strain tolerance. So many biosurfactant and their surface activity are not affected by the environmental conditions such as temperature and pH. That means they are more stable. Their surface activity remains more stable and remains same even if they are being exposed to different extremes of temperature and or extremes of wide range of pH. So lichen from Bacillus licheniformis GF2 is not affected by a temperature up to 50 degrees Celsius, whereas also the pH it can tolerate is from acidic to basic from 4.5 to 9, whereas the concentration, salt concentration, sodium chloride or calcium salt concentration they can tolerate is up to 50 to 25 gram per liter. So that is a very good range in which they can be easily formulated. So that's why the formulation doesn't have any problem, since they can be easily tolerated by any degree of change in temperature or any degree of change in pH or salt concentration. So a lipopeptide from Bacillus subtilis LB5A is very much stable under even after autoclave and after 6 months also at 18 degrees Celsius, and the surface activity even did not change from the pH from 5 to 11, which is a very good range, and up to having a sodium salt concentration up to 20%, whereas the Antarctic saccharophilic strain of Arthrobacter protoforme, it is being produced, they produce a biosurfactant that is very much good thermostable, having a range from 30 to 100 degrees Celsius, and it is also very much good, very much stable in a pH range of 2 to 12. So the industrial processes, they actually frequently involved very much, they have been exposed to the extremes of temperature, pressure, pH, and ionic strength of the salt concentration. So hence there is a continuous need to isolate new macro derived products, so which is being able to function under these conditions. So this particular stability under a different range, under wide range of temperature and pH, that makes them to be utilized in various industries, industrial processes, or various industrial formulation processes where they have been exposed to extremes of temperature, pressure, and pH. So another property that this biosurfactant normally shows is biodegradability. So unlike synthetic surfactant, the microbial produced compounds, they are being easily degraded and particularly suited for environmental applications such as bioremediation. So I will also try to explain how they can be utilized in bioremediation. Whereas the increasing environmental concern among the consumers and regulatory rules imposed by various governments forcing the industry to search for alternative products such as biosurfactant. And the low toxicity, although a few data is available in literature regarding the toxicity of the microbial surfactant, they are generally considered a low or non-toxic product, and therefore being very much appropriate for the pharmaceutical, cosmetic, and food purposes. So emulsion forming and emulsion breaking ability of the biosurfactant. So let me first tell you that the emulsion is a heterogeneous system which consists of at least one immiscible liquid that intimately dispersed in another in the form of droplets, the whose diameter is normally generally exceeds 0.1 mm. So these emulsions have internal and or dispersed and external or continuous phase. So they are generally of two types normally, these emulsions, oil in water and water in oil emulsions. So such systems, they possess a minimum stability, which may be accentuated by additives such as surface active agents. And thus, the stable emulsion can be easily produced with the lifespan of month or year. So biosurfactant, they may stabilize, emulsify, or destabilize the emulsion So high molecular mass biosurfactant, they are generally very much better emulsifier than the low molecular mass biosurfactant. So that's why the high molecular mass biosurfactant are also called as a bioemulsifier, whereas the emulsification property of the low molecular mass biosurfactant is low. So that's why they are being called it as a biosurfactant molecules. So for example, if I say if I say in terms of example, soporolipids from the Pteropsis bombicola, they have been shown to reduce the surface and interfacial tension very properly. Whereas the antimicrobial property or biosurfactant, uh, most of the biosurfactant molecules, they have shown to exhibit antimicrobial action against bacteria, fungi, algae, and viruses. So lipopeptide eturine from Bacillus subtilis, they showed a potent antifungal activity. And the significant reduction in the mycoflora present in stored grains of corn, peanuts, and cotton seeds was observed at uterine concentrations of up to 50 to 100 ppm. So inactivation of enveloped virus such as herpes and retrovirus, they were observed with 80 mm of millimolar of surfactant. So these rhamnolipids, they inhibited the growth of harmful bloom algae species, hetero sigma acacio and protocentrum dentatum at a concentration ranging from zero point 0.4 to 10 mg per liter. So this antimicrobial activity of various biosurfactant molecules also being utilized in various health pharmaceutical formulations. So how this biosurfactant molecule is being utilized in various industries. So let me first introduce these pharmaceutical applications of biosurfactant molecules. Due to their anti-adhesion and enzyme inhibition effect, and biosurfactant, they can be very much they can be utilized as active bio ingredients in the fungicides, bactericides, insecticides, and antiviral among the others. And biosurfactant, they are naturally produced by microorganisms during biofilm formation, smoothing the architecture of the microcolonies and maintaining the channels needed for distributing the vital fluids. So these attenuating properties of the isolated biosurfactants can be usually very much useful to ensure the anti-adherence of the human pathogens, and therefore to inhibit their capacity to form a biofilm to at the potential site of the infection. So this is mainly in terms of the novel coronavirus virus, which has very much potential to form a biofilm at the site of the infection, and this biosurfactant has a good ability to inhibit their capacity to form this particular biofilm. I'll also explain you with some diagram. So this antibiotic effect of the biosurfactant, they involves a damage to the lipid bilayer, which is being constituted by a cell membrane. And this biosurfactant allow the formation of the pores in the membranes, which leads to the disequilibrium in ion exchange and consequently to a cell death. So these biosurfactant molecules actually very much beneficial, or their property actually allows them to form the pores in the membrane, which leads to the disequilibrium or disbalance in the equilibrium of ions, and that actually leads to the death of the cell. It has also been shown that another bactericidal mechanism exhibited by some biosurfactant, they involve the generation of the intracellular reactive oxygen species, that is ROS. So there are kind of theories which is being involved in how the biosurfactant can be act as a antimicrobial agents. So either they have the ability to damage the lipid bilayers that constitutes the cellular membrane, or they have the ability to form pores in the membranes, which actually leads to the disbalance or disbalance in the ion, and that leads to the death of the cell. So another mechanism that is being exhibited or that is being shown by the biosurfactant molecule is that generation of the intracellular reactive oxygen species, which help them to inhibit the formation of the biofilm that is being generated or that is being formed by various infection by various viruses or bacteria at the potential site of infection. So Some of these biosurfactant, they also exhibit antiviral properties, particularly surfactant. It can prevent the formation, or it can prevent the infection of the epithelial cells caused by the envelope viruses, especially this coronavirus, novel coronavirus. So they can prevent the infection of the epithelial cells caused by the envelope viruses, including herpes viruses. They by inhibiting the membrane fusion between virus and host cell. So what this virus do is they actually they fuse their membrane with the host cell, and they form a biofilm in which they contains genetic material, and which actually normally helps them to multiply within their host cell by utilizing the material of the host cell. So what this surfactant molecule actually do is they actually prevent this infection, normally especially by the envelope viruses, by damaging the epithelial cells or by damaging the membranes that they form between host cell and viruses. So this inhibition can be carried out against porcine epidemic diarrhea virus at low biosurfactant concentration without cytotoxicity. So these surfactant generally produced by the probiotic Bacillus subtilis, they also showed their efficiency in the inactivation of the transmissible gastroenteritis coronavirus. So very recently, the use of biosurfactant has been suggested to combat SARS, severely acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, which is being responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic situation, which has resulted in a strong worldwide ongoing negative impact on health, societies, as well as economics of the various countries. So it is being noted that the biosurfactant could help to mitigate this transmission, incubation, and disease development. And this coronavirus is like any other viruses; they are completely dependent on their lipid membrane that keeps and stores their genetic information and viral machinery like protein and enzymes. So what this biosurfactant do is, this biosurfactant has this ability to deactivate this particular severely acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 through their simple membranal disruption, such as the most detergents do. So if we can add this biosurfactant molecule into the detergent, and as suggested by most of the regulatory authorities and health authorities, to wash our hands and to wash the part of our body which comes in contact with the foreign material regularly with soap or detergents, or the clothes that comes in contact with the viruses in surrounding with detergent. So this particular biosurfactant, they have this ability to deactivate this particular coronavirus or the envelope virus I will say, by simple membranal disruption as their properties concerned. So another possible mechanism of the action that could be the destabilization of this viral envelope and membrane proteins, such as the spikes of the glycoprotein that allows the virus to anchor itself to the human cell receptor. As you know, I will show in the next slide how it diagrammatically it actually helps to disrupt the coronavirus especially. So as you can see that most of you might have known that this particular coronavirus has a spike of glycoprotein that actually helps that particular coronavirus to anchor itself to the human cell receptor in body. So for example, angiotensin converting this enzyme to receptor. So this ability of the particular virus to anchor itself to the human cell receptor makes it to fuse its membrane to the host cell. And the use of biosurfactant as active agents in hand wash or cleansing product can prevent the spread of this coronavirus. So this can also be adequate excipients or adjuvants for the medicines to treat symptoms, and can be a good elements in the production of the antiviral mask. So biosurfactant, they can find other health applications such as immunomodulation, both activation and suppression of the immune system, and anti-cancerous effect. So inhibition of the cell cycle, apoptosis, inhibition of the metastatic capacity of the tumor cell is another kind of applications where we can use this particular biosurfactant. So how this is what the figure is being given. So this diagram will help you to understand how this particular biosurfactant molecule will help to disrupt the genetic material and that it carries in terms of protein and enzymes, especially by this corona respiratory acu- severely acute respiratory syndrome producing coronavirus, which normally gives uh, kind of uh, kind of infections. So when this biosurfactant molecule it act. So let's first understand the structure of this particular coronavirus. This has a glycoprotein spikes which have been surrounded by this particularly lipid bilayer. So this lipid bilayer has glycoprotein spikes, and which help them to anchor on the host cell wherever it enters. And this particularly lipid bilayer, they have some inside them, it contains a genetic material like in terms of protein and enzyme. So when this particularly biosurfactant it act on this particular virus, so this they actually encodes the drugs and targets the viral structure to destruct. So how they encodes the drugs? So this biosurfactant, they disrupt the lipid membrane and spike protein especially. So first of all, they disrupt this lipid bilayer membrane, and eventually the glycoproteins spikes which have been surrounded or which has been attached in this lipid bilayer. And when they disrupt this particularly lipid bilayer, this particularly genetic material in terms of enzyme and proteins, it is getting exposed to this particular biosurfactant molecule. And finally they form micelle, means this biosurfactant molecule, they form a micelle having non-polar agents or non-polar head, non-polar tail, completely projecting toward this genetic material, whereas a hydrophobic head projecting towards the polar head or water molecule. So they encapture this viral structure, and ultimately they disrupt the viral structure also. So in this way, this particular biosurfactant molecule will help to disrupt or to kill the viral structure of the coronavirus. So what are the potential food applications of the biosurfactant? So being effective in emulsion formation, the stabilization and anti-adhesive and antimicrobial activities, which would potentially make them suitable for the food industry. So these antimicrobial activities and anti-adhesive properties of the biosurfactant will also find its more application in various food industries. But since the research is very much limited, or since the food applications in the food industry applications, they have been very much sensitive towards our human health. So a lot of research needs to be done so that their toxicity test biosurfactant molecule, the toxicity test of this biosurfactant molecule should be more explored, so that they will be more effectively utilized in various food industry applications. So normally high molecular weight biosurfactant molecules, they find their applications to be utilized in various food industry, since these high molecular weight biosurfactant molecules can be effectively used as a bioemulsifier in food industries, like especially in bakery industry or baking industry. So also in a cake industry or confectionery industry. So for example, the glycolipids specifically have the potential as a food additives and a food preservatives due to their emulsifying and antibacterial activities. So biosurfactant, they have received very good attention in the industry recently because of their bioconversion ability of bioproducts to valuable compounds through the production of the glycolipids. So actinobacterial strain Nesterene species was isolated from the marine sponge Phasinospongia cavernosa, was found to be the highest biosurfactant producer amongst the different strain. So it shows that the antibiofilm and antioxidant activities alongside the emulsification properties, making it potentially beneficial for to be used in food industry. So this particularly antibiofilm, another aspect of using this biosurfactant biosurfactant in food industry is to clean the surface of the food industry, since the hygiene is very much essential or crucial factor in food industry. So biosurfactant molecule will help the floors to keep the floors of the food industry very much clean, and by preventing the formation of the biofilm, and by having antioxidant activities. So this particular biosurfactant molecules, they have very good potential in cleaning the floors of the food industry in terms of its due to its property, whereas due to its antioxidant activities and emulsification property, they can also have a good potential applications in various bakery industries. So a biosurfactant, they can have several other functions in food, like to control the agglomeration of fat globules, to stabilize the aerated systems, to improve the texture and shelf life of the starch containing products, to modify the rheological properties of wheat dough, which is being used in a bakery industry, and to improve the consistency, and texture of the fat based products. So in bakery industry, and so in ice cream formulations, the biosurfactant act as a controlling agent to control its consistency, to retard the stilling and solubilizing the oil flavor oils. So they are also utilized as a fat stabilizer and anti-spattering agents during cooking of the oil and fats. So an improvement of the dough stability, texture, volume, and conservation of the bakery products was obtained by the addition of the rhamnolipid surfactant. So it has been suggested that the use of the rhamnolipids can improve properties of the butter, cream, croissants, and frozen confectionery products. So bioemulsifier, isolated from the marine strain of Enterobacter cloacae, was described as a potential viscosity enhancing agents of the interest in food industry, especially due to its good viscosity observed at acidic pH, allowing its use in product containing citric and ascorbic acid. So these high molecular weight biosurfactant molecules can be used as a bioemulsifier, specially isolated or produced by the marine strain of Enterobacter cloacae, which has a good viscosity enhancing property, which can be easily utilized to increase the viscosity of the particular ice cream at acidic pH. So this biosurfactant also has an anti-adhesive agent property. So this biofilm, which is being described as a group of bacteria that have colonized on the surface. So this biofilm not only include the bacteria, but it also describes all of the extracellular material produced at the surface and any material trap within the resulting matrix. So the first step on biofilm establishment is bacterial adherence, which is being affected by factors including a microorganism species, hydrophobicity of the surface, and electrical charges involved, and environmental conditions and ability of the microorganisms to produce extracellular polymer that help the cells to anchor to the surfaces. So these bacterial biofilms, they present in the food industry surfaces. They are potential sources of contamination, which may lead to the food spoilage and disease transmission. So involvement of the biosurfactant in microbial adhesion and detachment from the surfaces, they have been investigated and found that the surfactant released by the Streptococcus thermophilus has been used for fouling control of heat exchanger plates in pasteurizers, as it retards the colonization of the thermophilic strains of the Streptococcus responsible for the fouling. So that is what the anti-adhesive properties being evolved or explored, where the biosurfactant molecule, which is being generated by the or released by the Streptococcus thermophilus, this biosurfactant molecule can be easily used in to control the fouling of heat exchanger plates, which is being used in pasteurizers, especially in dairy industry, where it retards the colonization of the thermophilic strains of the Streptococcus, which is responsible for the fouling of the plates of the heat exchanger in pasteurizer. So bioconditioning of the surfaces through the use of microbial surfactant have been also suggested as a new strategy to reduce the adhesion of the particular biosurfactant. So the use of biosurfactant which disrupts the biofilm and reduce the adhesion in combination with the antibiotics could represent a novel antimicrobial strategy to be used in various food industry as well as pharmaceutical industry. So this as an antibiotics which are being very much less effective against biofilm than planktonic cells, the disruption of the biofilm by biosurfactant can facilitate the antibiotic access to the cell. So considering the interesting properties demonstrated by biosurfactant, we can think on their future utilization as the multi-purpose ingredients which can exhibit as a emulsifier, as anti-adhesive, as antimicrobial agents, simultaneously along with the suitability to use in a food various food applications. So food processors, however, does not yet use a biosurfactant on large scale, as many regulations regarding the approval of new food ingredients are required by governmental agencies, and so this process could be quite long. So that's why this particular biosurfactant molecule or application of the biosurfactant to be used in the food industry can be a good area of research. So the rhamnolipids, which are very much sensitive to the pH changes and work best under most of the acidic conditions. So the combination of the rhamnolipids with other antimicrobials such as essential oil, bacteriocins, or biopolymers can increase their spectrum of action, making them prospective candidates in developing innovative strategies for the pathogenic control in food processing and packaging. So the biosurfactant from the yeast strain Candida albicans and Candida glabrata were isolated and characterized for their ability to lower the surface tension, acting as an emulsifier and stability, and got identified as a sophorolipids. So biosurfactant showed a significant antibacterial activity against Bacillus subtilis and Escherichia coli, common bacterial pathogens. The sophorolipids could be potentially used as a food emulsifier and antibacterial agents. So along with this, the biosurfactant also has a good application in agriculture as well as bioremediation. The biosurfactant, they have very few different role to play in the industrial agricultural field. They are being used as a carbon source by microbes found in or present in the soil, and could replace the harsh surfactant presently in pesticides. So they also improve the quality of the soil by increasing their bioremediation process of hydrocarbons and heavy metals present. So biosurfactant, they have been found to enhance the degradation of the certain chemical insecticides which are accumulated easily in agricultural soil. So it has been reported that the Bacillus subtilis strains has the ability to produce a lipopeptide biosurfactant with potential use as antifungal compounds. So these biosurfactant molecules, especially from Bacillus subtilis, they have been used or can be used as an antifungal compound, especially this lipopeptide kind of biosurfactant. Another application of the biosurfactant as detergent. So one of the main characteristic of the biosurfactant is their ability to act as a good emulsifier, which is being needed for the detergent activity. And this biosurfactant originating from the class Biela species strain was studied for its emulsification activity with oils and hydrocarbons, and it was shown to be more compatible with the detergents and enhancing oil removing efficiency from soil and cotton cloths. So in another study, it was found that the cyclic lipopeptide biosurfactant produced from Bacillus subtilis strain improved the washing performance of the various commercial detergents through their additive interaction with components of tested laundry detergents by efficiently removing the oil and blood stains. So in different research study, it was highlighted that the glycolipid biosurfactant isolated from the strain of Pseudohyma species could act as a laundry detergent additive owing to its unique hydrophobicity and stability at high temperature and over the alkaline pH range. So it was used in a laundry detergent formulations which normally help to remove the strain efficiently and could be utilized as an additive. So Orchobacterium intermedium, this strain also produced a biosurfactant which presented a strong oil removal capacity or characteristic based on the washing test. So use of surfactant in detergent formulations as a low toxic and non-irritant biosurfactant was also studied. So oral toxicity test and skin irritation test indicated that the surfactant was very much appropriate for commercial detergent use, while also exhibiting the excellent surface and interfacial properties in terms of emulsification, wettability, foamability, and stability. So another application of the biosurfactant is being found in a bioremediation process, in particularly in petroleum industry. So bioremediation, that means this is another aspect, but in petroleum industry, this petroleum industry products, especially crude oil, can be this biosurfactant molecule can be utilized to move this crude oil from one point to another point. So the petroleum biosurfactant can be easily used for the few different applications within the petroleum industry, like extraction of the crude oil from reservoir, its transportation in the pipeline, as well as cleaning of the storage tank. So biosurfactants, they are more suitable for these applications due to their ability to improve the mobilization of hydrocarbons, thus enhancing the movement of crude oil. Even though the petroleum hydrocarbons are important energy resources, they are major pollutants to the environment. So biosurfactant, they have been found to be more successful in the remediation of the environmental pollution caused by the oil spill. So remediation of the aquatic and terrestrial polluted environments is a challenging topic, as the physical collection methods often allow limited recovery, and chemical methods can generate new damages to the environment in terms of sludge. And the bioremediation may be carried out following the two mechanisms. First, a direct, second is indirect. In direct bioremediation, which involves the presence of microorganisms that degrades in situ the contaminants through its metabolism, which is a kind of slow process, because the metabolism of the microorganism is itself very slow. And so another indirect aspect of bioremediation, it involves the use of microbial compounds such as biosurfactant to modify the physicochemical properties and help the recovery of the contaminants. So the biosurfactant, they are secreted by microorganisms and released into the hydrophobic media, increases the hydrocarbon bioavailability to the same microorganism. In other words, the degradation of the hydrocarbons in the presence of microorganism is very much enhanced by the production of the biosurfactant. So the biosurfactant, isolated from the Pseudomonas aeruginosa strain, it shows very much interesting result in hydrocarbon remobilization from oil contaminated soil. The strain of Acinetobacter baumannii, isolated from the petroleum contaminated soil, was able to degrade pyrene also. So the growth of this strain on polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons as the sole carbon source was accompanied by the biosurfactant production. So another application of the biosurfactant is in composting. As you can see that the composting is also another efficient way of handling biologically active and potentially hazardous species to obtain the stabilized inert material with potential fertilizer properties. So the addition of the biosurfactant during chicken manure composting process was reported to improve the overall final qualities of such compost in terms of sanitization, in terms of fertilization, in terms of formation of the fumic acid, and in terms of organic matter degradation. Now, this particular sanitization that provides a higher peak of temperature during the thermophilic phase, whereas the fertilization, it provides a higher seed germination index, and the formation of humic acid, it lowers the E4 to E6 ratio, and organic matter degradation, it provides a higher cellulase activity. So biosurfactant has a very good important applications in the formation of the compost or in composting in terms of its temperature range, in terms of its temperature, I will say the thermophilic phase, then in terms of germination index, and in terms of cellulase activity. So metagenomic study also revealed that these improved qualities were also were the consequences of the increased diversity in microbial communities and subsequent diversity in metabolism, especially that is related to carbohydrate metabolism. So addition of the rhamnolipids during the fermentation of the waste activated sludge, that improved the hydrolysis and acidification process, notably by favoring the growth of the functional microorganism compared to the action of the synthetic surfactant. So that's why this biosurfactant has very good role to play to improve the properties of the composting or to improve the properties of the compost in terms of the formation of the humic acid or organic matter degradation. So that not only improve the qualities in terms of microbial communities, but also it in terms of diversity in the metabolism. So especially rhamnolipids, which is being explored during the fermentation of the waste activated sludge, it improves the hydrolysis of and acidification process, notably by favoring the growth of the functional microorganism compared to the action of the synthetic surfactant. So how this surfactant, biosurfactant molecules have been produced? There are mainly two ways to produce the biosurfactant molecules. One is a biosurfactant submerged fermentation, another is a solid state fermentation. So both has its own advantages as well as disadvantages. So the submerged fermentation, also called as the liquid fermentation, they used aqueous media for the fermentation purpose, whereas the solid state fermentation, they use the solid media for the fermentation purpose. Very less amount of water or very less amount of solvent is being used in solid state fermentation. So in terms of process parameter control, if I say the controlling of the parameters can be is very much easy in a aqueous phase or in a liquid media, that is in a submerged fermentation, rather than in a solid state fermentation. But this solid state fermentation media, since it doesn't involve much aqueous phase or very low content of water, it can be easily used in the lab scale as well as in a pilot scale. But for the commercial purpose or a very large scale production, is not so much suitable by using this solid state fermentation. That's why the submerged fermentation is being utilized. So both studies, a lot of studies have been done for the submerged fermentation and solid state fermentation to produce the biosurfactant molecule by using the metabolism of various microorganisms. And both methods, they possess advantages as well as disadvantages. Mainly, as I told you, that the controlling of the various parameters like temperature, pH, pressure, it can be easily achievable in submerged fermentation, whereas in solid state fermentation, the we can easily have the production of the biosurfactant molecule at lab scale as well as pilot scale. So controlling of the parameter is not so much good in solid state fermentation. So the solid state fermentation is a microbial process occurring mostly on the surface of the solid material that have the property to absorb or contain water with or without soluble nutrients. Whereas the submerged fermentation is very much good or best known methodology in the scientific literature and patents, while solid state fermentation, it occupies very small but emerging space. So I will try to explain both techniques and advantages and disadvantages of both the techniques and their potential application. So research needs to be done based on the specificity of the biosurfactant molecule and based on the specificity of the particular microbial strain which is being used to produce a biosurfactant molecule. So if I need to compare a particular process, which process is good or which process is not so good, so that doesn't that is overall in terms of various parameter, that is very much difficult to predict which process or submerged fermentation or solid state fermentation process is good. But that needs to be compared specifically based on the biosurfactant molecule or particularly in terms of microbial strain which is being utilized or which is being used for the formation of the particular biosurfactant molecule. So in terms of particular biosurfactant molecule species or production, both technique has to be utilized, and then we can compare either which method is good or not. So both techniques can use the same producing microorganism, but the results can be significantly different due to the large differences in conditions between the two types of cultivation regime. As I told you that this particular submerged fermentation, they utilize the aqueous phase, whereas the solid state fermentation, it require very minimal amount of water just to keep the moisture level at a particular level in the solid media. So the low water volume in solid state fermentation has a large impact on the economy of the process, mainly due to the smaller bioreactor size. So the lower water volume requirement in solid state fermentation, that not only reduce the cost of the fermentation process, but also it reduce the cost of downstreaming processing and also the sterilization cost. So the smaller bioreactor size, reduce in downstreaming processing, and lower sterilization cost, that gives a benefit of in terms of reducing the cost of the solid state fermentation process. Besides, many solid state fermentation process, they focus on the utilization of the cheap agro industrial byproducts as a culture medium. Another cost that is solid state fermentation bears is a solid media or solid media. So to reduce the cost of the overall process, a lot of research has been utilized, or a lot of researchers have explored various agro industrial byproducts like lignocellulosic material, which can be utilized as a potential source of carbon for the microorganism to be used to be used for their metabolism. So the solid state fermentation processes traditionally they involve more fungi than bacteria for their ability to grow at a lower water activity value. Since the evolution of higher fungi takes place on solid growth substrate. So based on microorganisms, as I told you that it is very much specific to the microorganism. If our source of the biosurfactant molecule is a fungi, we can easily use a solid state fermentation as compared to the bacterial source. So indeed, the low moisture content in the solid state fermentation media, it means that the fermentation can theoretically only be carried out by a limited number of microorganisms, mainly yeast and fungi. So the two classes of biosurfactant, and they're being produced through solid state fermentation, are glycolipids and lipopeptides. And the factors that normally affect the biosurfactant production in solid state fermentation is the pH, temperature, moisture content, medium composition, which is very much important factor, and nutrient supplementation that we are providing for the proper fermentation. How do the pH actually affect the biosurfactant production? Is that the pH values of the media strongly affects many enzymatic and secondary metabolite production. Since you know that biosurfactant is a secondary metabolite produced by various microorganisms. So and the transport of various components across the cell membrane. It is very well known that the fungi that can adapt to more acidic conditions than most of the bacteria. So the fungi is very much adaptable to the acidic conditions than the most of the bacteria. So concerning the biosurfactant production in solid state fermentation, the optimal pH conditions that it follows the trend is that the best pH value under which it can operate, or we can operate the solid state fermentation, is 4.5 to 5.5, especially for Aspergillus fumigatus and Pseudomonas jamor. The biosurfactant production that involves the yeast like Starmarella bombicola, it requires the pH values around 6. So as you know that from this example, we can easily see that the optimal pH condition, that is acidic conditions, is a basic requirement for the solid state fermentation if you are using yeast or fungi as a microbial strain to produce biosurfactant. So regarding bacteria like Pseudomonas aeruginosa or Bacillus subtilis, the optimal pH value is ranges from neutral to slightly basic, means 7 to 8. So the pH range is very much is not so broad in terms of yeast, fungi, or bacteria, which we can use or which we can utilize in solid state fermentation. So that's why the acidic conditions is mostly used or is normally maintained if we are using the yeast or fungi as a source for the production of the biosurfactant in solid state fermentation. Whereas the bacteria, it requires slightly neutral or neutral to slightly basic conditions for the optimum production of the biosurfactant molecules. So temperature is another critical factor which the solid state fermentation actually requires. So as the bioprocess progresses, the metabolic heat is generated by the microorganism, and because the solid media generally exhibit a lower thermal conductivity, since it consists of wood or lignocellulosic material, so heat may accumulate inside the media, which may leads to the detrimental temperature increase and thermal gradients. So this particular metabolic heat which is being generated by the microorganism during their metabolism, and the solid media, which is normally poorer conductor of the heat, So the heat may get accumulated inside the solid media, and that may leads to the temperature gradient present at various point, and that may affect the solid state fermentation process. So as the optimum activity of each type of microorganism takes place in a relatively well-defined range of temperature at which these operates most efficiently. So biosurfactant production depends on temperature. So filamentous fungi and yeast, they require optimum values of temperature between 25 to 30 degrees Celsius for their optimal biosurfactant production. Whereas rhamnolipids production, they require optimal temperature ranging from 30 to 37 degrees Celsius following the strain of Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Whereas the temperature greatly affects the lipopeptide production, as in the case of Bacillus cereus. So, though the temperature doesn't exceed beyond 40 degrees Celsius, but there is a very good, narrow range of optimum temperature, under which these fungi and yeast can be optimally utilized for the maximum production of the biosurfactant. Whereas the strain of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, they have also a very narrow range of temperature to operate in between, so as to use them for the production of the rhamnolipid production, that is 30 to 37 degrees Celsius. Whereas the Bacillus, they also Bacillus cereus, the temperature also affect the production of the lipopeptide biosurfactant molecule in the solid state fermentation process. The effect of moisture content on the biosurfactant production. The initial moisture content of the media, it varies as the bioprocess progresses and the microorganism consume the water. It is evaporated by the metabolic heat, leading to the water gradient in the bioreactor. So the water content of the media is therefore a very crucial or essential factor in solid state system, as it affects the microbial growth rate as well as the extent of the extent on the substrate, and that determines the product yield. So the low water content could retard the cell growth and metabolite production, whereas the water content of the media is very much important factor in solid state fermentation system that affects the microbial growth rate, extent on the substrate, and determines the production yield. So the low water content could retard the cell growth and metabolic production. An appropriate water content would provide an ideal microenvironment for supporting the growth and enhancing the metabolite production. So optimal moisture content should be maintained in the solid media so as to have a proper growth, cell growth, so that they can produce their metabolites in terms of biosurfactant. The biosurfactant producing filamentous fungi like Aspergillus fumigatus and Tinea versicolor, whereas yeast like Saccharomyces bombicola, they exhibit optimal moisture values in between 44.7 to 50%. So if we want to keep a moisture content at optimum level, so we can keep a moisture level from 44 or 40 to 50 degrees 50%, so as to have the maximum cell growth and maximum secondary metabolite production. So these moisture values are particularly very much important because the lower values tends to limit the growth of this potential contaminants in the solid state fermentation. So bacteria often requires a high value of moisture. Generally, fungi and yeast have water activity requirements of around 0.5 to 0.6, whereas the bacteria, they have the water activity requirement around 0.8 to 0.9. So that may generate alternative issues of solid media compaction, leading to the reduced gaseous transfer and favoring the contamination. So that's why the solid state, because this is what the reason why the solid state fermentation doesn't use bacteria so as often as compared to the fungi and yeast, because of this water activity level that it requires. Higher water activity level, that is 0.8 to 0.9, it actually allows, it actually creates an issue of the compaction of the media, which may leads to the reduced gaseous transfer, and that may favor the contamination. So higher moisture content, it actually restricts the exchange of gases between surrounding and solid media, and so that may exhibit, or that may leads to the formation of the contaminants within the solid media, and that would be detrimental to the formation of the to the cell growth or the cell cycle. Also, that may exhibit that consequently that may lower the production of the biosurfactant by using solid state fermentation media. That's why the yeast and fungi is very much commonly utilized for the production of the biosurfactant if we are using the solid state fermentation process. So the effect of medium composition on biosurfactant production also plays a very important role, since carbon is a very much essential factor for the biosurfactant co-generator, and so the yield and physicochemical properties. So hydrophobic carbon sources were also being reported to be better than hydrophilic ones in promoting the biosurfactant production. So the importance of the hydrophobicity of the carbon sources for the biosurfactant production is underlined by the fact that many producing microbes are commonly isolated from the soil or water contaminated with hydrophobic waste. So the biosurfactant production, however, generally requires a media which contains a simultaneous presence of hydrophilic and hydrophobic carbon sources in the culture media. So in solid state fermentation, the physical properties of the media are very much essential to provide environments suitable for the microbial growth and metabolite production. Whereas the biosurfactant production being generally an aerobic process, the factors like shape and size of the solid particles, the porosity of the media, and the mass transfer and energy transfer, hydrophilic and hydrophobic nature of the solid particles of the media, they have been very much interdependent and very much essential to consider for the solid state fermentation process. A very good medium texture is therefore very much essential, and some media includes like solid support like wheat straw and sugarcane bagasse has been very much recently explored to be used as a source of the media in solid state fermentation process. So the biosurfactant production from food and agro-industrial waste, what are the different waste from food industry as well as agro industry which has been utilized for the which are utilized in the formation of the biosurfactant by using solid state fermentation process. So the main factor that works against the widespread use of biosurfactant is the economics of their production. So for development of the cheaper process is the selection of the inexpensive medium components, which accounts for the 10 to 30% of the overall cost. So good component seems to be agro-industrial byproduct or waste. Once these residues are residues generally contains very high level of carbohydrates or lipids to support the growth and surfactant synthesis. Moreover, the treatment and disposal cost of these particular residues, especially bagasse, they are very much significant for the industries. So they are invariably searching for the alternatives to reduce, reuse, recycle, and valorize their waste. So advantages of the waste material is very much huge surpluses and possibility of the production in the regions with temperate to tropical climates. So the research on alternative low-cost substrate is mainly centered on the tropical agro-industrial crops and residues. So some attempts at using the waste for biosurfactant production, and only a few types of surfactant products from the waste have been published. So main alternative sources for biosurfactant production comprise of oil residue, milk and distillery waste, and carbohydrate-rich residues. So the most oil and fats are used in the food industry, especially in edible oil industry, which generates a greater quantities of waste. So their disposal is very much a growing problem. So Candida antarctica and Candida apicola synthesize surfactant known as glycolipids in the cultivation medium, which is being supplemented with oil refinery waste, especially edible oil refinery waste. Sulforolipid production by Candida bombicola was studied as a model for fat utilization from the meat processing industry also for the biosurfactant production. So the Pseudomonas aeruginosa 47T2, it grows on a frying oil from sunflower and olive oil, and the surface active compounds in the culture media showed a very final production of the rhamnolipids. The production of the rhamnolipids by Pseudomonas aeruginosa LB1 strain was also being studied using the waste obtained from the soybean oil, cottonseed oil, or babassu and palm and corn oil refinery, and the vegetable oils and residues from the vegetable oil refinery are among the most utilized low-cost substrate for the production of the rhamnolipids. So the rhamnolipids have been more explored. Sophorolipids and rhamnolipids have been more explored for their production by using various strains of Candida bombicola, Candida apicola, Pseudomonas genusa, aeruginosa, where the sources for their carbon or the media are the waste obtained from the edible oil industry, such as sunflower industry or olive oil industry, soybean oil industry, or cottonseed oil refinery. Whereas the disposal of the cheese whey is a continuing and growing problem in to the dairy industry. A lot of cheese whey have been generated by dairy industry. So there are two-step batch cultivation process which have been developed to produce sophorolipids from the whey by Candida bombicola and Cryptococcus curvatus. In the first step, the Candida curvatus was grown on a deproteinized whey concentrate, whereas in the next step, the cultivation broth was disrupted with a glass beads meal, and it served as a media for the growth and the sophorolipid production by Candida bombicola. So biosurfactant production from synthetic media and the agro-industrial waste such as a distillery and whey by a sludge isolate on the Pseudomonas aeruginosa BS2 was also been studied. Another residue which is being explored for the production of the biosurfactant is a carbohydrate residue. The potato processing effluents was found to be more suitable alternative carbon source to generate the surfactant from Bacillus subtilis. So Bacillus subtilis, they expresses alpha amylase, which permits the utilization of the starch-rich potato waste as a substrate for the biosurfactant production. The cassava wastewater is another kind of carbohydrate-rich residue generated at a large amount during the processing of cassava flour. And this residue, they prove to be an appropriate substrate for the biosurfactant synthesis and providing the not only a bacterial growth but also for the product accumulation. And surfactant that has interesting and useful properties with potential for the many industrial applications. Now, the Bacillus subtilis, these strains were able to produce a lipopeptide surfactant using a minimal media supplemented with molasses as a carbon source. The molasses and corn strip liquor were used as the primary carbon and nitrogen sources for the production of the rhamnolipids biosurfactant by using Pseudomonas aeruginosa GS3. So a lot of studies have been done on Pseudomonas aeruginosa and genetic mutations have been done to be used as for the various residual materials. So the natural bioproducts, they have very complex compositions and usually provide multiple nutrients to the microorganism that grow on them. However, these compounds, they are usually present in suboptimal quantities, and in this case, the nutrient supplementation is needed to provide all the necessary compounds for the optimal growth and production. Now, some examples of the supplements are very much common, are the copper and iron. So indeed, the iron is recognized to be an important enzyme activator, specifically for the isocitrate lyase, the enzyme involved in a cell growth on hydrophobic substrates. Now, each microorganism has its optimal cultivation conditions and requires a specific compounds depending on the expected products. Thus, the many studies have been implemented to imply the experimental designs to search for the factors with significant positive effect and their optimal levels to increase the biosurfactant productions. Now, how do we compare the solid state fermentation and submerged fermentation for the production of the biosurfactant, which is very much important and crucial? The biosurfactant are produced in higher quantities using solid state fermentation in comparison to the submerged fermentation using same culture conditions like temperature, nutrients, and concentrations and agitations, since the fermentation is aerobic. Now the yield of the product, like hydrophobins, in terms of gram of biomass, the produced by Pseudomonas austraeus, for example, was twofold higher when produced in a solid state fermentation than in submerged fermentation. The rhamnolipid production in solid state fermentation were also reported at a three times higher than that in submerged fermentation. The deuterium A production gets tenfold higher using solid state fermentation than in submerged fermentation. So one of the hypotheses why we are getting so much higher yield in submerged why we are getting so much higher yield in solid state fermentation rather than in submerged fermentation is that the secondary metabolite that it produces after the exponential growth phase, when nutrients become very much scarce in the media. In submerged production or in the submerged fermentation, the nutrients and oxygen, they are homogeneously distributed and very much abundantly in the liquid media, so leading to the bacterial strain to produce the biomass rather than the uterine A. That means in an aqueous phase where the nutrients and oxygens, they are being distributed very homogeneously and very abundantly in the liquid media, so the bacterial strain or the microbial strain which we are using, it continue its it continue its growth cycle to produce the biomass rather than producing the secondary metabolites. Whereas in a solid state fermentation, what happen is, due to the very low amount of water utilized or low amount of moisture utilized, so at the end of the growth cycle, at the end of the exponential growth cycle, the secondary metabolites start producing by the microorganism due to the scarcity of the carbon source as well as nutrients. So in solid state fermentation system, however, the nutritional stress may be observed as nutrients uptake becomes a limiting step due to the heterogeneities in the liquid phase, thus promoting a secondary metabolism. Another hypothesis that has been based on the biological structures differences observed between two types of process. In solid state fermentation, there is a formation of the biofilm that may be more suitable for the biosurfactant production than the planktonic form of the cell culture. So there are two hypotheses which has been proposed why the solid state fermentation has a greater yield compared to the submerged fermentation. The first is the formation of the secondary metabolite during the end of the exponential growth cycle, which leads to the formation of the secondary metabolite. Another hypothesis is that there is a formation of the biofilm which is being more suitable for the production of the biosurfactant compared to that in a submerged fermentation. So the higher production obtained of for biosurfactant in solid state fermentation compared to the submerged fermentation. However, this is not a general rule, as I told you that we cannot compare solid state fermentation and submerged fermentation generally. As a general rule, that solid state fermentation gives very much higher yield compared to the submerged fermentation. But it has been shown that the submerged fermentation gave higher quantities of biosurfactant using a bacteria and yeast culture than when the solid state fermentation was used. So this effect relies mostly on the strain and culture conditions used. Hence, ideally, the comparison should be made between solid state fermentation and submerged fermentation for every process, not only including quantitative and qualitative considerations, but also economical ones to choose the best option. Besides this, it is also interesting to mention that these studies reporting the better production of biosurfactant using a solid state fermentation rather than submerged fermentation were mainly carried out at laboratory scale. So for the as far as the commercial scale is concerned, we have to consider another factors like controlling of the parameters like pH and temperature, which may help to compare the solid state fermentation over the submerged fermentation. So that's why it is being chosen that though we can compare the both fermentation process at laboratory scale specific to the strain and specific to the conditions required, but when we go to the pilot level scale or commercial scale, the conditions that needs to be maintained like pH, temperature, pressure and other things, they have been very much that becomes very much different compared to the lab scale. So that's why at commercial scale also we need to again compare the yield of the product when we use solid state fermentation as well as submerged fermentation, where the controlling of the various parameters like this temperature, pressure and pH is very much suitable in submerged fermentation rather than in solid state fermentation. So it may happen that you may have a lower yield of biosurfactant in solid state fermentation if you use at commercial level compared to the submerged level fermentation, whereas for submerged level fermentation the yield is very much low at lab level as compared to the solid state fermentation. So regarding the process control, the processes are more developed for solid submerged fermentation process than the solid state fermentation process, and although there are some counter examples also. So the submerged fermentation is very much prevalent cultivation method used in fermentation industry. So what are the challenges in the production of the biosurfactant? First is the lack of industrial scale solid state bioreactor, as the absence of the efficient mathematical model backing the bioreactor designs, an automated control system that could successfully represent and overcome the heterogeneity of the bioreactor bed with respect to the heat and mass transfer. So we need to have a better design of the bioreactor if we want to use a solid state fermentation at commercial level. For that purpose, we need to have a better mathematical model or efficient mathematical model, which will correlate different parameters like pH, temperature, and other things, and the concentration of the media, concentration of the carbon, and the nutrient supply, and for the continuous system. So that mathematical model will definitely help to design a better bioreactor and a good automated control system, so that we can easily use for the fermentation process. So another factor that affect the use, or with which we can compare the solid state and submerged fermentation, is that production of the foam. So it is due to the air liquid interface normally. So in submerged fermentation, the liquid phase constitutes the culture media, and in case of biosurfactant production, the excess of the foam is often generated during the fermentation process, especially when the intensity of the agitation is very much high, and the aeration, which is generally the case of microorganism that produce the biosurfactant. So predominantly the under aerobic conditions, so favoring the dispersion at the interface between phases and the risk of the contamination. So the foaming is very much the formation of the foam is very much prevalent when the agitation is very much intense, and aeration, which is being used for the aerobic condition. So this particular condition actually favors the dispersion of the particular biosurfactant at the interface between phases and the risk of the contamination. So the microorganism which is being carried out into the foam layer by froth flotation, thus the foaming may decrease the effectiveness of the biocatalyst concentration in bulk liquid, and affecting the global bioprocess performance, and often the creating interferences with the measurement and sampling material. So as a consequence, many industrial scale biosurfactant productions, they require use of anti-foaming agents that increases the overall cost of the process. The solid state fermentation process, they enhance the oxygen transfer without the foam production, mitigating the risk of contamination. The use of solid state fermentation involves the reduced amount of free water, therefore could be the alternative method for the biosurfactant production. So the foaming is also another factor that will limit the use of submerged fermentation process to be utilized or to be used at a commercial level, where the solid state fermentation provides a better alternative due to the less amount of water being utilized during the process. The extraction also is another factor. So the extraction in solid state fermentation is usually considered to be more difficult in submerged fermentation because of the complex nature of the agro-industrial byproducts used as a solid media that display a bigger diversity of interaction, especially in between medium and product, and medium and solvent, which as a result can lead to the presence of the residual impurities in the crude extract. So in the solid state fermentation, the extraction is very much difficult because of the very much complex nature of the agro-industrial byproducts which is being used as a solid media. So that actually creates difficulty in understanding the diversity of interaction between media and product, or media and solvent. So that may leads to the impurities in the extract that we are extracting from the media. In practice, the required degree of purity of the product depends on the intended applications. Some sectors like health or cosmetics that involve the direct contact with living being included humans are particularly very much sensitive to the composition and requires very high degrees of purity. For this type of finer applications, the improved separation techniques such as prevaltive HPLC will be required. Even this type of applications require using more refined raw materials. So on the other hand, the direct use of fermented media or the crude extracts without further purification is appropriate for many other applications ranging from oil industry to the pollutant removal or general environmental applications. In case where the microorganisms would still be present or active in the product, such as dry fermented media containing conidia, it may be important to carry out the bioprocess with GRAS microorganism, generally recognized as a safe microorganism. So normally the extraction process is another parameter that needs to be considered while comparing the solid state fermentation and submerged fermentation process. Whereas the extraction is quite difficult in case of solid state fermentation process compared to the submerged fermentation process. So normally the acid precipitation process is normally used nowadays to have the biosurfactant from the solid state fermentation media. Another factor that actually needs to be considered while comparing the submerged and solid state fermentation process is cost. Various innovative technologies of integrated process of the fermentation and simultaneous extraction have emerged in a recent process. As I told you that the acid precipitation process is normally used nowadays for the simultaneous extraction. So for example, the integrated gravity-based separation process that greatly improves the productivity, the process cycle and production cost. Although developed for the submerged fermentation, integrated these separation process can be envisaged in the future for solid state fermentation process also, particularly in case of the continuous or semi-continuous process that involves the plug flow bioreactor with separated fermentation and extraction compartments, which is similar to the process for semi-continuous production and extraction of the ethanol. Now the future perspective. The biosurfactant shows very several properties which could be useful in many fields of the food industry. Their anti-adhesive property has attracted attention as a new tool to inhibit and disrupt the biofilm formed in the food contact surfaces. The combination of the particular characteristics such as emulsifying, anti-adhesive, and antimicrobial activities they presented by the biosurfactant, they suggest a potential application as a multi-purpose ingredients or additives. The scant information regarding toxicity combined with high production cost seems to be the major cause for the limited use of this biosurfactant in food areas. That's why we need to have more research on the toxicity level, toxicity test of this biosurfactant in terms of food production or in terms of food industry, in terms of its higher cost also. However, the use of agro-industrial waste can reduce the biosurfactant production cost, as well as the waste treatment expands and also renders a new alternative for the food and food-related industries, not only for valorizing their waste, but also to becoming the microbial surfactant producers. Biosurfactant obtained from the generally recognized as the safe microorganisms like lactobacilli and yeast are of a great promise for the food and medicine applications, though much more research is already required in this field. The prospect of the new type of surface active compounds from microorganisms can contribute for the detection of the different molecules in terms of structure, properties, but the toxicological aspect of the new and current biosurfactant should be emphasized in order to certify that it is safe for the compounds for the food utilization purposes. So the future of the biosurfactant, biosurfactant utilization in various applications is very much huge because they cover and sometimes exceed the scope of the synthetic biosurfactant or synthetic surfactant. Their implementation in the productive and daily life will involve the most ecological aspects, such as reducing the exposure of the dangerous chemical substances, not only for the humans, but also for the plants and animals, by reducing the carbon footprints and boosting the circular economy. The small amount of this biological surfactant, that is biosurfactant, have been shown to produce the same effect in terms of surface activities as a commercial chemical surfactant. So therefore, the finished surfactant bio-based products like detergents, shampoos, soaps, cleaning agents could simply contain biosurfactant in very small quantities, either as a main component or as an adjuvant component that enhance the overall activity. So using the modest but significant load of biosurfactant into the formulations automatically would reduce the scale of their production and consequently the scale of their purification process. This approach can bring the biosurfactant to the market in a shorter time than expected. Not too many commercial examples are emerging nowadays in different parts of the world. That's why the generation of the innovative technologies for production, control, separation, purification, characterization, performance evaluation shows a promising future for biotechnological exploitation of the biosurfactant. So many studies therefore work on overcoming the technological bottlenecks, and amongst them, the solid state fermentation can be a interesting candidates. So although a publishable activity on the biosurfactant production via solid state fermentation is more recent and does not follow the same exponential tendency as a submerged fermentation, it is likely to think that this culture technique will turn into something established in the near future in the biotechnological industry. This will not only take place in the academic world, but also as a relevant strategy for industry to produce bio-based products with interesting yield, lower cost, and through a possible valorization of byproducts and industrial waste. So the advances in solid state fermentation are accompanied by the evolution of the chemical engineering, modeling, and biotechnology, which contribute to the understanding and decreasing the specific technological limitations like heat removal and facilitating its integration in the process at pilot and industrial scale. So finally, the increase of the good and efficient relationship between academia and industry worldwide, mediated by a public opinion on a better recognition for the sustainability aspect in the production practices, will also contribute to this impulse. So the current battle against the COVID-19 may become a good example as a driving force behind such evolution. So I think this is from all my side. If anyone has any kind of query, I will try to answer these queries.
The attending candidates are requested, in case if you have any queries, you can always unmute yourself and talk directly to our resource person, or you can also type in your query in the chat box and then it can be read out. Whatever suits your listing. Sir, sometimes it takes them a while to type in the query. So until then,
Sure, sir.
well, Ashok Kumar sir has written very nice presentation, sir, and Shravan Kumar Singh sir has written very factual presentation. Thank you, sir, for your response. Well, I suppose, sir, that there are no more queries. So we would now like to thank you and extend our heartfelt gratitude for conducting such an in-depth session on advances in biochemical engineering biosurfactant. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Ballarpur Institute of Technology and on behalf of the organizing committee of the short-term training program, we thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and conducting such a wonderful session for us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Abhijit sir, for providing me this opportunity to have this kind of session in such a STTP. So I am very much thankful to Ballarpur Institute also to providing me this opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you, participants, for having so much patience for 2 hours.
Okay, sir. So now to all the attendees, you are requested to fill in the feedback form of this session. The link to share the feedback form will be shared shortly on the WhatsApp group, and you are all requested to submit the feedback form before 11 p.m. today, post which the link will cease to accept responses. We will now take a short break and then we will resume the session at 2:30 p.m. that is 2:30 in the noon. You are all requested to join us by 2:20 p.m. that is 20 past 2, so that we can start the session sharp at 2:30 p.m. Until then, if you wish, you can stay in the meeting or you can disconnect and join us back. You are all requested to join us by 2:20 p.m. You can use the very same link to join us back, which was forwarded to you in the morning. That is the link which you have used to join now is valid for today's entire day. So using this very same link, you can join for the post lunch session also. Thank you so much.